welcome back to my YouTube channel. I appreciate your energy and capacity in joining me again on this next episode. So this is my second video. The first one was an introduction into like what I was hoping to think about, especially around the mental health and bariatric pieces. I also wanted to just kind of shout out, a lot of people left comments about what their words were. So my word for the year is increase, and wanting to step outside of my comfort zone, which is this video as well. It's pushing past my own kind of inner saboteur and talking about what feels really important to me. And so one of the things that I wanted to talk about that I actually did talk about on my podcast is my bariatric journey. I think everybody's bariatric journey is absolutely individual and unique. And I think that there's no one proper way to do anything in particular. I think it's important to listen to your doctors and your nurses and your staff to make sure that you're getting exactly what it is that you need. So I want to put out a disclaimer saying that although I am a mental health provider, I am not an expert as far as the components of the physical health pieces. So your doctor, your nurses, your nutritionists are the folks that you should definitely be heeding their warnings. I will only be speaking from my personal experience and my mental health provider experience. I can talk about how those things impact one another, but as far as you getting the absolute everything from me in this space, it won't be. I am not a doctor. I am not a nurse. I'm not a healthcare provider. I'm a mental health provider. And so I want to make sure that I put that disclaimer out, because I think there's a lot of misinformation that can go around. And I think there's an expectation that if I do something, you should be doing it too. I can only suggest what I know has worked for me, and what my doctors and nurses and everyone has said is okay for me to do, versus me telling you that this is the only way to go about it. So let's jump into it. I have been on a weight loss journey, or at least battling with weight, for a really long time, actually. And this is not necessarily to say that being a bigger person or having more weight on your body is a bad thing. I think that it's something that I've had to battle, manage, navigate, because it also impacted some of my health concerns. And later on, I had developed diabetes, which is something that is a familial issue within our family. And I had really been working towards not getting to that point in my life, to perpetuate some of the health issues that I had been seeing. And unfortunately and fortunately, I was able to get diagnosed with it. And a month later, after having my bariatric surgery, I am no longer diabetic. I'm no longer taking that medication. I am working towards getting off of my my blood pressure medication as well. And so the only thing that I will be taking going forward is my bariatric vitamins, some additional vitamins just for immune health and making sure my bones are good. So make sure you're taking your vitamins. That's one thing I can definitely say is an overarching theme, is make sure you're taking care of yourself and take your vitamins for sure. So I started my bariatric journey June 17th, 2021. And that's when I had my surgery. But leading up to that, I have been working on attempting to lose weight by myself for a really long time. I had got it in my head that I had done it myself, so I needed to get it off myself. And since childhood, food has always been a very consistent friend in my life. I think, with a lot of things that have happened and, really big emotions, you try to find ways to cope with those things. And sometimes the palate is the first thing that can be satiated. So when I would have big feelings or things would come up for me and I wasn't able to necessarily verbalize them or there sometimes was a lot of spaces where I was by myself and doing stuff for myself. And I talk about this on my podcast, Moments of Authenticity, as well. It's a 4-part series. But I think that, trying to find ways to manage and navigate was a lot around like fad diets, and so the Weight Watchers, the Jenny Craig's, the cabbage soup diet, trying to do just liquids mainly, slim fast, like a lot of the things that folks think to go ahead and incorporate, but it wasn't consistent. And I will say that consistency has always been a little bit of my issue, is like trying to supplement the actual work of figuring out what was going on for me mentally and emotionally, and utilizing food as a coping mechanism. And so I know that food has definitely played a role in my life that has been consistent. It's been familiar. It has been there in the good times. It's been there in the bad times. Like communally, we use it to celebrate. We also use it when we're grieving. We use it when we're upset. And sometimes it's not just food. Sometimes it's alcohol or other things. And so wanting to recognize like my relationship to food and my body, and always kind of feeling like hyper visible and hyper invisible at the same time. Folks noticed my weight, but didn't really like ask a lot of questions. Not that anybody was responsible for figuring out the why. But I think that there was some like feeling that it didn't matter. Or it was like hyper visible where folks are like, no, we need to do something now. And that would sometimes feel really overwhelming. So I really, when it came to bariatric surgery, I was anti-surgery at first. And it wasn't because of the surgery itself. It was more so like the narrative I had created for myself around, I don't want people cutting on me, and I don't want, to have a foreign object in my body. Like I was really misinformed. And I dare I say ignorant as well. I think it was more so a cry for having to have an additional intervention, felt like I was failing. And I don't know that I've ever named that. Even like today is probably the first time I've actually named that. Me saying I had to get surgery meant that I was failing, like failing myself. I was failing my body. I was failing my coping strategies. And I'm emotional even thinking about it now. But I think that really having to get to a point of having surgery felt like a failure for me. And I'm not saying that that's how I feel today. Today, I feel like it's one of the things that is saving me. I think that bariatric surgery is so, it really does support with getting your life back if you haven't had an opportunity to do some of the things that you've always wanted to do. And this is not a cure-all. This is only a tool. So I want to make that disclaimer as well. This is not the end-all be-all. You do have to still work. You do have to still be mindful of what you're eating, mindful of your emotions. What do you grab when you're feeling certain feelings? Those things are really important. So I want to name that this journey is ongoing consistently. And so I had my surgery 6/17/21. Right before that, I had gotten diagnosed with diabetes. I had also reached my highest weight of 458 pounds. I remember going into a doctor's appointment before that, and I actually had gotten really offended with my doctor. It was my first meeting with her. I stepped into the room. She barely said anything to me first and was like, have you thought about bariatric surgery? And in my mind, I had actually had the question about potentially getting it, but I felt offended that that's the first thing that she said to me versus like trying to get to know me, my family history, my personal history, all of those things. And I recognize that I don't think it was her intent at all to offend me. The impact of that, though, where healthcare providers, it feels like they don't see you. Like the weight is a barrier to them actually seeing you and hearing you, and like really talking about opportunities to become a healthier version of myself was where I was at. Not that, weight isn't a complete indicator of health, but I knew my health was not in a good space. I knew that like my blood pressure was consistently high. I was pre-diabetic for a really long time. I had this like darkness around my neck that I could not get rid of. And if you see today, it's not there. And I needed support. I needed support, and I was hoping that someone came into the room with support in a way that it felt like we were collaborating. And I didn't feel like my doctor was being collaborative. It was kind of like being spoken at, and almost spoken down to. I was able to finally articulate to a doctor how I felt about that. That was really scary to do because I think that there's a lot of power that doctors wield, and that can be a really uncomfortable experience. So after having this conversation with her and expressing my discontent with how it started, we were able to discuss having a referral to a bariatric surgeon. I ended up taking a little bit of time to finally reach out to that doctor, but I did reach out to him. And my experience with him was also pretty uncomfortable. When I walked into this space, that's when I found out that I had reached 458 pounds. I want to recognize that I was eating a pint of ice cream a night, specifically chocolate Haagen-Dazs, like the chocolate chip Haagen-Dazs ice cream. I would eat a pint a night. For some reason, it made me feel better, and I would feel not so great if I didn't finish it. And that's also something to think about is like, how were you taught about like not wasting food and eating all the food off your plate, because there are starving folks all over the world, and there was a narrative created about waste. And I also was feeling like, well, I'm already here now, I might as well finish it. So there was a lot of narratives being created. But going into this doctor's appointment with the bariatric surgeon, the first thing he said to me is, you're too dainty to have all this weight on you. And I was stuck. I was honestly stuck because I didn't anticipate going into a space that's supposed to be helping you to have a different relationship to your body and food, for that to be the first thing that was said to me. And I remember already the shock of the number on the scale, leaving from that space and that conversation with him, and him also letting me know that it was going to be $20,000 for the surgery. And I knew that I just could not afford that. So I went to my car and I cried. And I just felt so lost. And it was a scary moment for me because I didn't know what I was going to do. And I knew that I was going to need to do something. So with that feeling of not knowing what I was going to do and feeling overwhelmed, I ate more. I had more sugar. I think I drank more at that time. And I was trying to escape the feeling of hopelessness that I was feeling. And this is the first time I'm actually like naming that too. That it was a sense of hopelessness, that I wasn't going to be able to fix what I felt like I broke. That I was failing at, and I wasn't really used to failing very much. I think that weight has always felt like the indicator of failing for me, whereas like I've, graduated from high school, undergrad, I went to grad school, I started a business. So I didn't feel like a failure in those spaces. I mean, for the most part, like when you look at it overarching. But weight always felt like a space that I was failing myself, and the hopelessness really took over my senses. And once I had a conversation, I was able to look at other places where I could potentially have this surgery for less money, still having a lot of safety. So I decided to go to Mexico, and that was a big decision to make. I was really fearful of telling my family that I was going to be doing that because medical tourism can feel really scary to those that don't know anything about where you're gonna be or have access to you, or the fear that you won't come home. And so I was really fearful about telling them what I had decided, but I thought that it was important for me to make the decision for myself. And once I made the decision, I paid the money, I bought my tickets, my best friends were involved. Then I told my family, which I can recognize now that was a really hard decision to make, and it was also hard for them to hear. And I still felt like it was the best option for me. So I went to Mexico. I had my surgery. It was successful, no issues. The staff was, some of them were great. And the doctor was great, though. He was definitely great. And ever since then, it has been an uphill battle to manage and consistently figure out what my relationships have been to my emotions versus food. And I have made conscious decisions and conscious efforts to make sure that I'm not supplementing food for something else as a coping mechanism, but instead looking at how I'm feeling, and allowing myself to feel it and name it and really sit in it, versus trying to run or push it down. Because I think sometimes that can be one of the mental health aspects of this journey, is when you suppress, you push it down, it becomes volcanic. So you don't want to feel something, you push it down, and you put other things on top of it. It eventually comes out, and it comes out in some harmful, negative ways. And I think, recognizing that I didn't want to do that anymore, I have really made conscious decisions to think about how my emotions, what I'm feeling, where I'm at, really what they are, versus ignoring them or trying to find other things to go to run away from them. That's been a hard journey, and I'll definitely want to take more time to talk about what that has looked like for me. So since my surgery in June of 2021, this morning I was 298, and who's to say where I'm gonna be in the next month or so? I feel like there's a lot of fluctuation, but I recognize that I'm also strength training. And with the strength training, I'm building muscle at the same time I'm losing weight. And so I can see it in the inches. I went from a 30-32, like wearing clothes, 4X, 5Xs to an extra large. I can get into an 18-20 type of outfit. And so for me, that's a really big jump, because I have not been able to get to an 18-20 in a really long time. I started wearing adult clothing in middle school. I think that's when it started, maybe around 6th grade. So I couldn't get the regular uniforms that people would get. I had to go to some of the adult stores and shop there. And so now I'm recognizing that I'm even getting below some of the, not yet. We getting there, right? Out of the heavier curve items, and being able to potentially fit like what they call, I guess, regular, which I don't like. I don't like regular size clothing, but not plus size clothing. I still have a ways to go, and I'm sure that my journey isn't unfamiliar to other folks and how they've been able to maneuver it. And I can definitely go into more detail about my experience, the hospital, like all those different things if folks are interested. I can also talk to you about what I eat and, some of the vitamins I take, because that to me feels like useful information. But again, pay attention to what your doctors and your nurses and your staff is saying about your journey, because those are the ones that know your situation best. And so you can utilize what I say as a support, but not necessarily as the only thing that you pay attention to. So I appreciate you listening, you taking the time to watch this video. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe this video. I really look forward to coming back and having more conversations, and also leave in the comments if there's something in particular you would like to know about this journey and my particular experience. I wish that you have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you again for your time.